Hello and welcome to another Doctor's Assistant 1 video, and today I'm doing a review of Doctor Who Curse of Davros. Now, before I fully get into this review, just a little bit of housekeeping. Just wanted to say that I'll go on the record and say that this is the first Big Finish review on my channel of 2018, so yeah, just to keep a sort of record there, archive it sort of thing. So yeah, Curse of Davros is the first 2018 review, Big Finish review on my channel. Secondly, I just wanted to note that I'm reviewing this story because of a shout out here to Joseph Hartley. Joseph Hartley, who is a member of the Doctor's Assistant 1 Facebook group page, and as I say, like, he suggested that I should review this one. I was torn between this and a Fourth Doctor Adventure series episode, so I was torn between those two, and well, he suggested that I do this one, and so I'm doing this one, and then I'd potentially do the Fourth Doctor one next anyway. I was more than anything torn between which one I should review first and then next, not, you know, which one should I review and then never review the other one sort of thing. But anyway, on to the review. So we have a picture of Mr. Colin Baker there, Curse of Davros by Jonathan Morris, Doctor Who, the old sort of 80s design logo, Big Finish with featuring Terry Malloy, with Nicholas Briggs as a Dalek, full cast audio drama. You got a Dalek there, sort of Imperial Dalek. You got Flip, played by Liz Greenwood, and Mr. Colin Baker as the Sixth Doctor, Dalek there, Davros there, and some swords there. That's pretty much the front cover. Then you got Curse of Davros 156, which means it's the 156th release in the monthly range. Then you've got another picture of Colin Baker at the top, Big Finish at the bottom, and then on the back you've got the blurb or synopsis of the story, cast list, how long it is, which is 120 minutes, so 2 hours long. You've got writer's notes and pamphlet there, you've got the discs on the inside and whatnot. So I listened to this one yesterday of this recording. I have listened to this one before getting it for Christmas, but it was quite some time ago. It was still a brilliant listen, a really good listen. I think my only two major criticisms that I can think of off the top of my head would be that I think if you're going into this expecting a really good Dalek story, you might potentially be disappointed, as it's not probably the most heaviest of Dalek stories, as in the Daleks aren't in it a lot. They're in it here and there, but I'd say it's more sort of Genesis of the Daleks-esque, but with Colin Baker instead of Tom Baker. And if that sounds appealing to you, then by all means, obviously purchase this one. You know, and I have to, well, yeah, the Daleks aren't massively used. If you're not a massive history buff, or even if you don't know a lot about history and that, but if you're not engaged with history or interested in wanting to learn about history or the Battle of Waterloo or anything, then you might find this one not too interesting. So there's the history aspect, there's the Daleks, and then there's the fact that personally for me I felt like not Lucy Miller, sorry, Flip, her boyfriend Jared, I felt like if I had to pick a weak link in terms of the characters, I'd probably say he was the weakest of the characters. Granted, he, spoiler alert, ends up not being in the next one anyway, or I assume not anyway, considering they break up sort of thing at the end of this story anyway. I think so those are my major three criticisms and all complaints with the story. You know, the Daleks aren't in it massively. Flip's boyfriend's probably the weakest link in terms of characters, and then the Daleks are not in it that much, and even when they are, they're not massively foreboding, or, you know, they don't have the substance or gravitas as some other releases potentially might have them be like, and all stories just generally in the TV show as well. You know, so if you're going into this being like, oh, this is a proper good, or this might be a really good Dalek story, you might potentially be disappointed. If you're thinking it's set in modern day, you might be disappointed seeing as it's not. But I mean, it's not like a pure historical. As I say, it has got the Daleks and Davros and that. And the Daleks and Davros's plan is nicely interwoven and interweaved. You know, like the history and the science fictiony stuff don't clash. Oddly enough, they intertwine really well, and I think for a 4-part story, it flows really nice. The pacing is really good. I think if you're a modern series fan and you've never listened to any Big Finish audios, I would easily recommend this for beginners, as I think it's probably one of the earliest Big Finish audios I ever listened to, and I think it was one of the easier ones to ever listen to. And I think on a second viewing, i.e. the time that I've just watched it, listened to it yesterday, and all reviewing it now, I think I enjoyed it more because I really wanted to learn about the history, whereas the first time I never knew that this was going to be set in the history or in a historical setting, I don't think, and that, or I might have known but not really known a lot about that historical time period, and all felt like I wanted to learn about it, so it felt very much thrusted on me. Whereas if you have any interest in learning about Napoleon or the Battle of Waterloo, then you're going to learn some stuff here. Not tons, but some stuff, and it's basically, yeah, like, in that respect, it kind of feels like what I imagine, what my limited understanding of the 60s of Doctor Who is, that, you know, a lot of that era and that story, those stories were, which was, you know, history, but with science fiction as well interjected there, and or doing history in a fun way to appeal to kids. And I think this is engaging. It's not dumbed down by any means, but it is definitely more accessible, and that, I think, but still quite sort of done in a respectful way to not belittle the people listening to it, I don't think. Colin Baker, wow, is outstanding in this. He is superb, superlative here. He is just on another level, and that's coming from someone who isn't a big fan of his Doctor in the main TV show. I think he gives out a stellar performance. I mean, Terry Malloy as well as Davros gives a bone-chillingly amazing, you know, performance again. You know, I think he's probably better. He probably has even more to do in Terra Firma, I think, but I think here he still has quite a lot to process and chew on, so to speak, and that, you know, and sink his teeth into, so to speak, and that. And I think both Colin Baker and Terry Malloy have something very interesting to do, or they both have something very interesting to do, without spoiling what I'm on about in this story. I think they both get to play different roles. Let's just put it that way without spoiling anything. And Flip as the companion, you know, Liz Greenwood makes a reappearance because she was in an earlier release. Off the top of my head, I can't remember it, but she makes a reappearance here, and I think it's well deserved, because she was really good here or in the previous one, from what I remember of that release. I don't have it, but I remember listening to it with a friend over at Nerd Central. But again, she is very much like Rose, and you'd think logically that the Sixth Doctor wouldn't particularly like a companion like Rose, but she's modern, she's sort of got that sort of modern youthful charm about her, but she's still quite intellectual. She's not just sort of your stereotypical screaming, you know, 60s Doctor Who companion or anything. She's very much like, the biggest compliment I can give her is she's very much like Ace. I could easily see even sort of after or before Ace, maybe Flip being a companion with the Sixth Doctor, then Ace, then you know, Rose sort of thing with the Ninth Doctor, and that, you know, and it happening in that sort of way. I love the classic Doctor Who sort of Dalek effect as well, which works here in this story, because again, it is the old school Daleks. It's just that in the War Doctor box sets, they have the modern Daleks and the bronze ones, but they have like the old 80s Doctor Who sound effect, and that always took me out of the immersion ever so slightly. But the history bit and the history setting is really well done and good, and that, and I think on a second listen and all listening to it a second time, I think I got it a lot more, and I could appreciate the history setting a lot more and that, and I think I as I say, I think because I wanted to know about this time period of history, I think I engaged with it a lot more, and it was a lot more in that way it was a lot more beneficial for me and all rewarding. And I think that's the key to a historical Doctor Who story, really. If you're interested in the time period but don't know anything about it, then ideally it should be able to teach you at least the bare essentials, if not, and or get you, if not teach you the bare essentials and all the advanced stuff, at least teach you the bare essentials and or make you more sort of inclined and or more motivated to want to learn more about it and or go on the internet and read books about it, you know. But yeah, again, Colin Baker's fantastic here. I like the fact that it's set in the modern day for part one, modern time, and that to introduce Flip and Jared, her boyfriend, and that, because I think it would have been very jarring and very sort of bewildering for new listeners and or even people just watching or listening to this in chronological order, because the previous one would have been Army of the Dead anyway, so with Paul McGann, the previous release. So this is the first release with you're going from the 8th Doctor to the 6th Doctor and that, and I think it's nice. It's a bit of a sort of makes it a little bit more accessible to old listeners and new listeners alike, basically setting it in a more familiar setting, and that to ease people back into potentially a 6th Doctor one, which they may not have had for a while, and or new listeners to Big Finish Audio's period, and that full stop, setting it somewhere familiar. And the Daleks are, for the very few times they are there, they have, I think, the best utilised in part one. I think after part one, when we get into the history setting, I think the reason why they take the back seat is because the story's trying to juggle between the history people, so the English and the French, and the Duke of Wellington and Napoleon, and it's trying to juggle between those two, Davros, the Doctor, Flip, Jared, and then the Daleks. So there's like 7 different things happening there, and I think 2 of those get pushed to the side, i.e. Jared and the Daleks, because you've still got decent interactions with bits with Napoleon and the Duke of Wellington, and phenomenal bits with Davros and the Doctor, and then Flip is really good as well. Again, Terry Malloy is superb here. He's fantastic. He's maniacal. He's evil. You really get a nice insight to who Davros is and why he's so happy to have what happens in this story to him happen, because of the circumstance of where he is as a character and or the body of the character and that. So yeah, even though there are quite a few shortcomings here and there for this release, I would easily give this a well-earned 10 out of 10. It's a phenomenal story, and for anyone who's any bit a fan of Davros, the Daleks, or the 6th Doctor, Davros or the 6th Doctor, I would easily pick this one up. Or if you're a history buff and like the sort of time period that the Battle of Waterloo is set in, I would easily recommend this one. I'm going to give it a well-earned 10 out of 10. Thanks for watching, comment, rate and subscribe.